Muchas gracias por venir a esta clase de ladino. Me llamo Carlos y soy español y hace 6 años empecé con el ladino porque es parte también de mi historia, de la historia de una diáspora que comienza en la península ibérica y nunca termina, ¿no? Y sigue en muchos países diferentes. Y entonces voy a compartir la pantalla y vamos a empezar ya a ver algunas palabras en ladino. Por ejemplo, en buena hora, vengash. Esto es bienvenidos, bienvenidas, welcome, ¿sí? En buena hora, vengash. Vengash. Y dunque, ahora estoy hablando en latino. Voy a intentar hacerlo en español. Y ahora, por ejemplo, podemos ver aquí el alfabeto y las diferencias entre el alfabeto español moderno y el alfabeto latino. Entonces, las palabras, las letras que están en marrón son iguales en español y en latino.
Sí.
Las letras que están en azul se escriben igual, pero se pronuncian diferente. Por ejemplo, con la H, ¿sí? La H en español no se pronuncia, ¿verdad?
Sí.
Digo hoy, hola, pero en latino suena como una J. Entonces, para news, noticias, decimos jaber, jaber, jaber. Entonces, es la misma letra, pero se pronuncia diferente. Jaber. Y para decir ¿qué tal? How are you? Decimos que jaber. Que jaber. ¿Sí? Después tenemos la J en español. En latino se pronuncia y. Y. Entonces, por ejemplo, fija en español, ama en latino es filla. 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 Y decimos filla para decir hija en español. Hija en español es filla en latino o illa en latino. En latino, muchas veces hay varias formas de escribir la misma palabra que son correctas. Es un idioma mucho menos estandarizado que el español, porque no hay una real academia de... Ahora sí están haciendo una real academia del judeo español en Israel, pero todavía está empezando. Y después, por ejemplo, la V y la B, ¿sí? En español moderno se pronuncian igual. Yo digo Barcelona o viejo, la B y la V se pronuncian igual. Pero en latino es una V fricativa. Se pronuncia con los dientes sobre el labio inferior. Es viejo. Viejo.
Viejo.
Entonces, en español viejo, pero en latino viejo. 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 Y finalmente, la Z. La Z de zapato en español, para shoe, zapato, no existe en latino. En latino es Z, como en inglés to think. ¿Sí? Entonces, para presente no existe en español, es presente, ¿verdad? Y en latino es presente, presente. No presente, sino presente, presente.
Sí.
Y después hay letras que no existen en español. Por ejemplo, la Y, como en Chutio o Djokovic. ¿Sí? Esto no existe en español, pero es un sonido que existe en latino. Para decir, en español es judío, pero en latino es judío. Judío. Y lo mismo con NY. En español es con ñ, ¿verdad? Año. Pero en latino es año. Año. El sonido es el mismo, pero se escribe diferente.
Sí.
Estas son, y ya para terminar, la sh. Sh. Esto no existe en español, pero existe en latino. Por ejemplo, shalom es hola en latino. Shalom. ¿Sí? Desear paz o hola. Shalom. Pero esto no existe en latino. Y ahora, con esto, ya podemos hacer saludicos. Saludicos son saludos. En latino es muy frecuente terminar las palabras con ico. Con ico. Saludico. Esto viene del aragonés, que es una variante dialectal del español. Yo vengo de Aragón, en España, de Zaragoza. Entonces, en mi casa, la gente que habla español moderno dice mucho saludicos, como en latino.
Interesante.
Entonces, para decir, por ejemplo, good morning es como en español, buenos días, pero se escribe diferente, es días. Para decir buenos días, pero más poético, decimos de mañana buena y clara.
Wow.
Literally good and clear morning. De mañana buena y clara. De mañana buena y clara. La I es una I latina, no es una Y. Para decir and es una I latina siempre. Para welcome, bienvenidos, como en español. Para decir gracias a Dios, decimos bendito el Dio. Y esto es muy interesante porque en latino decimos Dio, no Dios. Porque en el monoteísmo judío es muy importante dejar claro que solamente hay un Dios. Entonces, como en español añadimos S para hacer el plural, si no escribimos la S, la palabra es singular y solo hay un Dios. Entonces, Dio es más singular que Dios. Las dos palabras son singular, pero Dio parece más singular, es como énfasis.
Sí.
Para decir see you soon o hasta la vista, decimos al vermos. Al vermos. Al vermos. Until the next time I see you. Al vermos. Greetings son saludos o saludicos. Para nice to meet you decimos mucho gusto. Mucho gusto. No es mucho, ama mucho. Mucho. ¿Sí? Mucho. Nice to meet you. Tuve o tuvi. Mucho placer. Placer. Tuve mucho placer. What's your name? Ok, esto es con una sola interrogación al final. What's your name? ¿Cómo te llamas? Como en inglés, solo con una interrogación. Y para decir mashallah o qué bueno, bla, 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 es maravillas, great, maravilla. Y finalmente, para decir of course, por supuesto, en español, decimos seguro en latín. Decir, por supuesto. ¿Puedes hacer esto? Seguro. Por supuesto. Y ahora podemos practicar esto. Por ejemplo, Moshe puede ser Alex y Rachel puede ser Iglika.
Muy bien.
Vamos a meldar. Meldar es leer en latín. Meldar.
Buenos días.
Buenos días, Moshe.
Que Javier.
Todo bueno, merci. ¿Y tú?
Todo bueno. Bendito el Dios.
Al vermos, Moshe.
Al vermos. Raquel. Rachel.
De mañana buena y clara que tengas, Moshe.
Y tengas.
Ajá. Muy bien, muy bueno. Esto es interesante. Cuando alguien nos desea algo bueno o malo, cuando nos desea algo en español, en el latino, tenemos que repetir el verbo. Entonces, si Rachel dice, de mañana buena y clara que tengas, may you have a good and clear morning. La respuesta es, y tengas, and may you have it.
Not just you too.
En español decimos, tú también. O you too en inglés, pero en latino repetimos el verbo. Es como call and answer. Hacemos así. Y tengas. Nochada buena que tengas, y tengas. Vale, entonces, esto es lo básico del lenguaje. Ahora, creo que también es muy interesante saber históricamente por qué el latino es diferente del español y en qué sentido es diferente. Entonces, ahora vamos a ver 1 minuto y medio de presentación en ladino, con subtítulos en ladino,
Ujú.
y después hablaremos en inglés sobre qué significa lo que vimos en el vídeo, ¿vale?
Sí,
Sí.
gracias.
Vale. Entonces, esto ya lo hicimos. Ah, bueno, tengo esta presentación antes del vídeo, si queréis, tenemos tiempo, ¿sí?
Ujú.
Ujú.
Vamos a presentarnos y después hacemos el vídeo, ¿vale? Entonces, nos presentaremos. Vamos a hablar de 4 demandas, de 4 preguntas, ¿sí? ¿Cómo te
Sí.
llamas? ¿Sí? Con K. En ladino no existe la C.
Ajá.
Ujú.
Entonces escribimos cómo con K, qué con K, cuál con K. Te llamas. En ladino no existen las 2 Ls. Entonces es con Y, te llamas. ¿Sí?
Mm.
Bien. Ande, no donde, ande.
Ajá.
Nacites o te nacites. It can be reflexive. ¿Sí? Nacites o te nacites.
Okay.
Mm.
Engrandecites es te hiciste grande. So,
Ujú.
where you grew up. ¿Sí?
Mm. Sí.
¿Cuál es tu laboro? Laboro, sí, como el laburo del español en Argentina, ¿sí?
Mm.
El italiano
Mm.
laboro, ¿sí?
Sí.
Mm.
¿Y qué lenguas hablas? ¿Sí?
Mm.
Entonces,
Ujú.
Mm.
por ejemplo, ¿quién soy yo? Preguntamos, ¿quién sos tú? Y decimos, yo soy Carlos, yo soy Alex, yo soy Iggy.
Mm.
¿Sí?
Ujú.
¿Cómo te llamas? Yo me llamo, esto es con Y, esto debe ser con
Ujú. Sí.
yo
Mm.
me llamo Y, yo me llamo Alex. ¿De qué
Mm.
alcuña sos? Esto es muy interesante. Alcuña es apellido. Entonces,
Ajá.
No.
eso es alcuña.
Mm.
Ese cuña, con la cuña hacemos cosas. En inglés es coinage. Por ejemplo, el coin es
Ajá.
una cuña, con una cosa así, ¿sí?
Mm.
Ajá.
Sí.
Entonces, la cuna, the cradle, para el bebé, se llama cuna porque es donde está la persona cuando nace, ¿verdad?
Ujú.
Entonces,
Sí.
cuña quiere decir origen. Por eso, ¿de
Mm.
qué alcuña sos? Es cuál es tu origen de nombre.
Mm.
Entonces, por ejemplo, yo soy Carlos Yebra López. Entonces, yo soy de alcuña Yebra López. My 2 surnames.
Ujú.
Mm.
¿Sí? Entonces, ¿de qué alcuña sos, Alex?
Yo soy de Acuña Stupak.
Tupac, ¿vale?
Mm.
¿De qué alcuña sos, Iglesias?
Yo soy de Alcuña Nikolova Stupak.
Sí.
Mm.
Después, ¿cuántos años tienes? Es lo mismo que en español, pero cambiando las letras, ¿verdad? En lugar de la C ponemos
Mm.
K, en lugar de N, NY, y en lugar de I latina, Y.
Mm.
Ujú.
Esto es donde vives, es ande moras. Morar es en
Mm.
portugués. Eu moro na França. Eu moro. Morar es vivir en un lugar, pero en portugués. Es un verbo portugués. Morar.
Mm.
Eu moro, yo vivo. Entonces, en
Ujú.
latino decimos yo moro en New York, yo moro en Francia, yo moro en Bulgaria.
Mm.
Ande moras. Ok, ande moras, Alex.
Um, yo moro en el medio de Francia,
Ajá. Sí, en medio o en la mitad de Francia. Ujú.
en la mitad.
Ujú.
Mm.
Ande laboras, donde trabajas, ¿sí? Por ejemplo, yo laboro en la Universidad de New York. Ande laboras, Iglaca.
Yo laboro en
Monoglossia.
SAP, the company SAP.
Ajá, vale. En la firma, decimos firma en latino, firma, como en
Firma.
Mm.
Ujú.
Mm.
yo laboro en SAP, sí, en la firma SAP,
Ujú.
¿vale?
Mm.
¿Y qué edad tienes? Es como cuántos años tienes, ¿sí? Esto es.
Ajá.
¿Hay alguna pregunta? Pregunta es demanda en
Ajá.
latino, como demand en francés.
Mm.
¿Hay alguna pregunta? Anything that you would like to know that is not clear?
It's all like pretty clear.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's very interesting to see it written down. So it sounds close to Spanish, but yet like it looks quite different.
Right.
So it's interesting.
And one thing that, una cosa importante es que aquí estamos aprendiendo el ladino en alfabeto latino, porque es más fácil. Pero históricamente y todavía en ladino se escriben muchos alfabetos diferentes. Hay textos de ladino en alfabeto cirílico serbio, en griego, en el alfabeto griego, en árabe, en rashi o merubá, es decir, en el alfabeto hebreo, y también en solitreo. El solitreo es la escritura cursiva que se utiliza para escribir el ladino, se utilizaba hasta el siglo XIX-XX. Después, cuando Atatürk hace la República de Turquía, después del Imperio Otomán, en 1923, entonces el ladino empieza a escribirse casi siempre en el alfabeto latino. Pero antes de eso, casi nunca vemos un texto en ladino en el alfabeto latino. Casi nunca. Entonces,
I can tell, like, by the fact that there are lots of Ks, let's say, instead of C, it makes me think of how some Slavic languages are transcribed into Latin. It kind of shows that it's not native to the alphabet. Yes, there isn't a C and a K. There is just one of the two.
And the sounds like J, as in Judio, or Shalom. It's the same, right? In Serbian, you need to also transcribe it with diacritic marks, right?
Yeah.
Definitely. Por ejemplo, en solitreo, aquí voy a escribir aquí. Solitreo es así. Os voy a mostrar cómo es el solitreo. Esto es solitreo. La cursiva del ladino hasta el siglo XIX. Y aquí dice Carlos. La A de Alif, la R, la L, la O y la S, como la sigma en griego. Esto es Carlos. Y es un alfabeto muy, muy diferente. Y hay muy poca gente en el mundo que son capaces de leer este alfabeto. Entonces, es un alfabeto que se utilizaba para las cartas, para la lista de la compra, para cosas del día a día. Entonces, por ejemplo, en el Museo de Judío de Nueva York hay una sala con un montón de cartas en solitreo. Nadie sabe qué dicen, porque no hay suficiente gente, suficientes académicos, etcétera, para interpretar esas cartas. Memorias de la abuela de mi abuela. Interesante. Y ahora vamos a ver lo que dije el vídeo de cómo el ladino es diferente, cómo se origina, porque mucha gente piensa que el ladino se forma en España. Y no es exactamente así. Entonces vamos a ver cómo. Vamos a ver esto, es 1 minuto 15 segundos. Vale.
Muy bien.
Y como podéis ver en la mapa, digamos así, el ladino, también llamamos judeo-español, es una variedad lingüística hablada principalmente por los judíos y las judías que fueron arrollados y arrolladas de la península ibérica a la fin del siglo XV.
Sí, esto quiere decir el ladino es una variedad lingüística hablada por los judíos y judías que fueron expulsados y expulsadas de la península ibérica al fin del siglo XV. ¿Sí? Decimos el fin del siglo XV porque mucha gente piensa que es 1492. Y 1492 es importante, pero después hubo más expulsiones de los reinos de Navarra y de Portugal. En ese momento no hay un Estado España, hay 4 reinos: Reino de Castilla, Reino de Aragón, Reino de Portugal y Reino de Navarra. Entonces los judíos son expulsados de todos estos reinos. Y en ese momento, el ladino como lengua vernacular, lengua hablada, todavía no se habla.
Y dunque, partieron en todo un baúl de direcciones, ama el latín o judeo-español, se forma en esta línea colorada que podéis ver en la mapa. Y dunque, en torno al Imperio Osmanli o el Imperio Otomano.
Sí, entonces lo que llamamos ladino hoy, en realidad es una variante dialectal del ladino que se forma en torno al Mediterráneo, en lo que luego será el Imperio Otomano, que incluye en ese momento Grecia, ¿verdad? Entonces, Salónica, por ejemplo, es parte del Imperio Otomano.
Mismo si esta variedad, si el ladino se desvelopó en la diáspora, el ladino tiene también un mabul, una ley de aspectos que apartienen a las variedades lingüísticas que se hablaban durante la Edad Media en la península ibérica, y más que todo el castellano.
Ok, entonces, aquí decimos que a pesar de que el ladino se desarrolla en la diáspora, su base lingüística son lenguas que se hablaban en la península ibérica. Entonces, cuando una persona fue expulsada de lo que hoy es Cataluña, por ejemplo, y otra persona era expulsada de lo que hoy es Madrid, entonces ellos hablan entre ellos y encuentran un modo común de comunicarse, una manera común de comunicarse. Y entonces nace un idioma que tiene elementos de lo que ahora es el catalán, elementos de lo que ahora es el leonés o el aragonés o otras partes de la península ibérica. Y entonces, por ejemplo, decimos en ladino caler. En catalán, cal fer això, es hay que hacer esto. It is necessary to do so. But this cal only exists in Catalan, not in Spanish. But it exists in Spanish through Catalan, por ejemplo.
Hoy en día, malogrosamente, el ladino está clasificado por la UNESCO como una lengua en peligro de extinción.
La UNESCO dice que hay 100.000, más o menos 100.000 hablantes de ladino en todo el mundo hoy. 100.000. Pero en realidad hay menos, porque 100.000 quiere decir todas las personas que tienen padres que hablaban el ladino. Entonces, muchas de estas personas conocen unas palabras, pero no hablan toda la lengua. Entonces, en realidad, gente que habla la lengua son menos de 50.000 en todo el mundo. Menos de 50.000 en todo el mundo, sí. Vale, entonces esto era el vídeo. And now we can discuss the main aspects in English, if you like.
Sure.
So the first one would be, where was Ladino formed according to this explanation? Any of you can begin to answer.
So, yeah, I hope I'm not going to say anything silly, but it's after the 15th century, right after the, can I say the expulsion of?
Yes, it was an expulsion regulated by an edict. So it was formally and in practice an expulsion, definitely.
Is it linked? Is it part or did it come after the Reconquista?
So the so-called Reconquista, which is a term that is not accurate because what ended up being after Reconquista was not exactly the same territory that was held by Christians before the Conquista by the Muslims. So it's inaccurate to speak of Reconquista. For instance, Ceuta and other cities were not there. So it's not that after 1492, Christians had reclaimed exactly the same territory. Things had already changed. So it's kind of a nationalistic myth that's developed by national Catholicism in the 19th century. Before the 19th century, the term Reconquista didn't even exist in the literature. It's a myth created by national Catholicism in Spain to give the impression that their nation is much more ancient than it is in reality. Because if it's a reconquest, it means it belonged to you before that, right? That's the implication. So in any case, yes, the so-called reconquest finishes in 1492, right? With the rendition of Granada, the fall of Granada. And that's the same year of the expulsion of the Jews from the kingdoms of Castile and Aragon. So yes, it's the same year, yeah.
Okay. You did not answer the question where, so I'll answer it. So that's what he always does, like he starts talking about something else. So it was formed around the Mediterranean.
Right. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So around the Mediterranean coast, okay, with elements that came from the Iberian Peninsula for sure, because those people came from there, but it was not formed there. Okay, it's important also to notice that there are many variants of Ladino. Okay, so the most important ones are Ladino. When it first began to exist, it was a word-by-word translation of the Hebrew Bible, and so in liturgy in the 13th century Spain, when the rabbis were reading in Hebrew, it came a point where people wouldn't understand Hebrew anymore. And so they wouldn't understand what the rabbis were saying, kind of like the same in Latin and with priests, right? Priests used service in Latin, and to a point where the followers couldn't understand what the priest was saying in Latin, right? Had to be the vernacular form. So what the Jews in the Iberian Peninsula did, the rabbis, is they translated into Latin word by word from the Hebrew Bible, and so that's a calque. We call it a calque because it's a copy word by word, and it's not a language that is spoken in any context. It's just a language created for liturgical purposes, ex professo, for that particular function, so that people who share your religion can understand what you're preaching to them. So that was the origin of Ladino, and that's what we call Ladino, strictly speaking. What we call Ladino in this class, and we're seeing the like, Nos presentaremos, que haber, all of this, it's actually Judesmo. That's actually Judesmo. And so we can distinguish between Britain Ladino, the one that I just told you about in the Iberian Peninsula, 13th century liturgical purposes, and vernacular or spoken Ladino. And then within vernacular or spoken Ladino, you have two variants. Judesmo, which is the main one and the one we're talking about today, and the one that everybody knows as Ladino, even though it's not Ladino strictly speaking, because it's not the Britain. Yeah, we have Judesmo and Haketia. Haketia is the same in the sense that it's a spoken language. It's not a written one, it's spoken language, but it's spoken in the north of Africa, in Morocco. And it's only by the community of Jews who were expelled from the Iberian Peninsula and remained in the north of Morocco, isolated. So they incorporated a lot of words from Arabic and not words from Italian or French or Serbian, or right? Yeah. And Haketia is just spoken by maybe 100 people in the world right now. So it's very much almost extinct. So when we talk about Ladino today, we're really talking about Judesmo, the Mediterranean vernacular. But because so many people speak it, then it comes to stand for the whole of Ladino. And so when people say Ladino, they really mean Judesmo.
I see.
That's what we really mean. Yeah. So Ladino, as the written form, word by word translation of the Hebrew Bible, was formed in the Iberian Peninsula. But what we mean as Ladino today, Judesmo, the vernacular in the Mediterranean, was formed in the Mediterranean.
All right.
I see.
And okay, so number 2, Alex.
Yeah. I'll try to keep it short. What is the linguistic basis of Ladino? I hope I'm like
the linguistic basis of Judesmo, right? That's what
Judesmo. Yeah, sorry. So is it different strands of if I'm not mistaken, I heard about Catalonia. I heard of Navarre. I'm not quite sure how to say it, but so yeah, it's different local dialects.
4 different kingdoms that Spain used to be beforehand. All of them had an influence upon it as people came from different parts of the previous kingdom, and they were speaking these different languages and found a common base.
Yes. Yeah. So the very notion of language is a modern construction, right? So it's more accurate to speak back then of linguistic varieties. Whether they were languages or dialects is more difficult to determine. But so the linguistic basis of Ladino are the linguistic varieties of the Iberian Peninsula, right? Whether you wanted to call it today Galician or Catalan, or that's a different thing, right? Because back then nobody spoke of, oh, this is Galician, this is a closed language, this is the grammar of Galician. Those things didn't exist yet, right? But yeah, so the linguistic varieties from the Iberian Peninsula. Now, that doesn't mean that Ladino was equally represented in all the different linguistic varieties. So it was not like it was 2% of Catalan and then 2% of Castilian and 2% of Galician. No, these percentages were very much unequal. So Castilian was still the most prestigious and more popular variety. So even though it's all the languages from the Iberian Peninsula, because there were people from all over the Iberian Peninsula, it was mostly Castilian at the end of the day, because that was already the most powerful linguistic variety, right? In 1492, Elio Antonio de Nebrija publishes the first Spanish grammar, and that's called Gramática Castellana, right? Not called Spanish, it's called Grammar of Castilian. And then, because Castilian was so powerful in the Iberian Peninsula, came to stand for the whole of Spanish. Whereas in reality, Spanish languages are Catalan, Galician, Euskera.
Right? We very much alike for that, like the neighboring country of France. We worked exactly in the same way. Like, exactly. That's at a kind of common French really derived from like specific like kingly speech like from the Ile-de-France, like where like Paris stands. So,
definitely, right. You have Occitan, and you have all the languages there. And, and even within those languages, you have the system of dialects, right? So even within Catalan, you have the Rosellón, you have the Perpignan, you have
the... quite different.
Okay, great. So, Iglaka, where does Ladino get its Italian, Serbian, Turkish words from?
Well, because like we saw on the map, when the Jews left what is Spain, they settled in all these areas. So even though they were speaking this language that was highly based on Spanish or where they were before, I guess under the influence of their life there, like possibly mostly like everyday vocabulary, it was influenced by the current environment.
Exactly. Yeah. So by contact with their environment, they incorporated loan words, right? Loan words from these areas, right? Again, this is a retrospective projection that we're making, right? It's a bit anachronistic to say, okay, this was Italian, this was Turkish, because those are constructions that came later, right? When the Jews arrived there was no such thing as Italian. This is the grammar of Italian, this is the dictionary, this is a self-contained language. That construction is a modern one, right? Comes later. But yeah, for pedagogical purposes, we say Italian, Turkish, even though these were not the same languages as today. Okay, and then the second video that I want to show is why is it not Spanish? Why is it different from Spanish? Because what we saw is the origin, right? So the origin is not in the Iberian Peninsula, it's in the Mediterranean with elements from the Iberian Peninsula. And then there is a parallel evolution, almost in isolation for 3 centuries. That exacerbates the difference. That makes it more exaggerated even. And that's when all these changes in sounds and in the way it's written begin to emerge.
Y dunque, el ladino no es español. Esto es lo primero que cal comprender. Es verdad que el ladino appartiene a la área lingüística hispánica, como vimos en la mapa y en el filmico con el...
Right, I would say that it belongs to the linguistic area of linguistic, Hispanic linguistics. It's a Hispanic because it has linguistic elements based on the languages of the Iberian Peninsula. But that doesn't mean Spanish.
Eliezer Papo, el latino tiene una base del castellano y de otras lenguas de la península ibérica, ama el ladino se forma en la diáspora. Dunque, si el ladino appartiene a la área lingüística hispánica, ama, esto no quiere decir que es una variedad del español moderno. ¿Por qué no? No es una variedad del español moderno porque, como nos explica la lingüista Aldina Quintana en un artículo magnífico sobre el origen pluricéntrico del ladino o judeo-español, el ladino o judeo-español se desvelopa en la diáspora entre los séculos 7 y 19. Y dunque, este desvelopamiento es independiente del estándar español y es un desvelopamiento pluricéntrico.
Okay, so Ladino is developed between the 16th and the 19th century, and we say until the 19th century because from the 19th century onwards, there's a re-Hispanization and re-Latinization of Ladino and many other languages, by the way, but we're talking about Ladino, right? So again, Ladino starts being written across the board in the Latin alphabet. It incorporates words from Spanish, etc., etc. But between the 16th and the 19th century, there is pretty much an isolation between Spanish, which is developed in a different way in the Iberian Peninsula, and then Ladino, which is being developed in a different way outside. And when we say pluricéntrico, we just mean there were different centers of power, different cities that spoke different varieties of Ladino, right? And now we're going to see which cities are those.
Mientras entre los séculos 7 y 19 el español moderno se desvelopa en la península ibérica, el ladino se desvelopa afuera de la península ibérica, en la diáspora, en una diáspora que la más grande parte es osmanlí. Y por esto decimos que el ladino enflorece en los centros de poder político, económico y cultural del judaísmo osmanlí, del judaísmo otomán. Estos centros son, por ejemplo, Salónica, Estambul, Safed, Viena y Belgrado, principalmente.
Okay, so these are the places where Ladino is blossoms and florece, blossoms like a flower. And so you can find, for instance, I have read myself tefillot, books of prayers that are written in Ladino with the Cyrillic alphabet, for instance, from Belgrade, that are printed in 1856, for instance. These are the kind of materials in Ladino that people rarely think about it nowadays, because what they see on the news, on the BBC, for instance, there was a very famous piece of news that, in Bosnia, people speak ancient Spanish. When people read this news, which have some relationship to the truth, but are at the same time are very different from the truth, people think, okay, Ladino is similar to Spanish, that's it. And they always imagine that written in the Latin alphabet necessarily, and it's much more complicated. And so if these people were to read this book that I made reference to of the Book of Prayers in Ladino with the Cyrillic alphabet, they wouldn't recognize it as Ladino, because in their mind they already have the prejudice that Ladino ought to be written in the Latin alphabet, ought to kind of like Spanish. But this is no less Ladino than the Ladino that is written in the Latin alphabet, right? That's just another example. So Belgrado, Safed, Vienna, Salónica, and Istanbul. Especially Salónica is
actually, I was going to talk to you about this. We went to Thessaloniki, and there is a museum about
the Jewish museum, and I remember I bought a book, didn't I?
Did.
Yes, because I thought it. Yes, I was curious if I was going to understand it. I was really deeply into studying Spanish at the time. So
and it's pretty much like you said, even though it was extremely well made, everything was in Latin when when it mentioned Ladino. So very interesting.
And it's a pity, because even though Salonika is so crucial to understand the history of Ladino, nowadays it doesn't remain much. When you go to the museum, you try to identify speakers of Ladino as their first language. Is extremely hard, because after the Holocaust, 90% of the Jewish population was killed in the Holocaust. 90%. So there's almost nothing. nowadays. It's very, very hard for people who do field work like me to identify people who live currently in Salonika and who speak Ladino as their first language. Very, very hard. Whereas in Istanbul, it's much easier. Even in Belgrade, you can find some people, but in Saloniki, it's so difficult. Yeah. And so here's the crucial third and final point.
Y aunque al cabo del cabo, el ladino presenta un diasistema y estándares independientes.
Okay, well, what is a diasistema? A diasistema or diasystem is of dialects, right?
Yeah.
So for instance, we say that the diasystem of Spanish is Argentinian Spanish, Colombian Spanish. This is the diasystem of Spanish. So it's not only that Ladino is not a dialect of Spanish, since they were developed independently, blah, blah, blah. But in addition to that, both Spanish and Ladino have their own systems of dialects, their own diasystem. So it's not that Ladino is a dialect. Ladino is a language on its own that has different dialects within Ladino. So the dialect of Salonika, the dialect of Istanbul, yeah. People, for instance, in current Serbia, when they speak Ladino, they use a lot of use. So it's called bueniku as opposed to buenico, whereas someone who speaks it in France will say buenico. They will say buenico, right? Bueniku. Yeah. And so these are different dialects of the same language, which is Ladino.
Tema es un conjunto de dialectos diferentes. Y aunque no es solo que el ladino no es un dialecto del español, ama. Y además de esto, adentro del ladino hay toda una variedad de dialectos propios y estándares independientes. Por ejemplo, hay formas que en español moderno son juzgadas como incultas y o arcaicas. Ama, estas mismas formas en ladino son parte de la norma estándar. Por ejemplo.
Right, and then as a result, some of the words that are found archaic or vulgar or poor Spanish are perfectly acceptable in Ladino. So, so when someone who only knows Spanish looks at those words, thinks that you're speaking poor Ladino, or you're speaking broke. You're speaking broke Spanish, or you're speaking poor Spanish, and it's not. It is only poor Spanish if you judge it from the viewpoint of Spanish. If you judge it from the inside of Ladino, you realize that is the standard form, that is neither very formal nor very low, according to the rules of Ladino itself.
Y no decimos seiga o aiga. Espero que seiga un buen día. Seiga es un uso arcaico en el español moderno. Ama, del punto de vista del estándar del ladino, seiga es parte de la norma estándar y no una desviación.
Right. So when we say in Spanish, for instance, I hope there is a lot of people there, right? I hope there is a lot of people there. We say, espero que haya mucha aquí, yes? Espero que haya. But in Castilian, ancient Castilian, they will say, espero que haya. And that entered Ladino and never left. So nowadays in Latino, we still say espero que haya. Now, from the perspective of a current Spaniard, this is archaic, this is ancient, it's older, because it hasn't been incorporated into the Spanish Royal Academy rules that started in the 18th century, and therefore, from the perspective of contemporary Spaniard, this is poor, broke Spanish. No, you don't say haya, you have to say haya. See, haya is the correct form, right? In my Spanish classes, I teach this. When people say haya, I say, no, this is incorrect, it's haya in the Spanish language. But in the Ladino language, it is correct to say haya from the very perspective of the Ladino language, yeah? So thinking that haya is archaic in Ladino makes no sense, because it is only archaic if you judge it from the perspective of Spanish. So same with seiga and many other things that we say in Ladino. And this is curious because sometimes my parents come from small villages, and so some of their friends and the conversations that they had with their friends back when they were 10 or 8 years old and so on contain words that are the standard in Ladino. because those words were used from generation to generation in small towns in Spain, and they never evolved into modern Spanish, because those people were not in contact with people from Madrid or Barcelona or big cities, right? So these people have in common many words with Ladino. So sometimes when people make a mistake in Spanish according to the rules of Spanish, my parents joke and said to me, "Oh, this must be Ladino." These people must know Ladino, must have learned Ladino at some point.
Yeah.
It's just that they have a common ancestor.
I see.
Yeah. So yeah, it's the same. I always compare with, like, imagine you see two people that are very similar, and you say, "Oh, you must be brother and sister, or you must be twins, or you must be," and they're not.
Yeah.
This is the same that happens with Ladino and
Yeah, I see.
Okay, so after this video, then the question is this. For instance, Alex, is Ladino a Hispanic language?
It is an Hispanic language, but not a dialect of Spanish.
Right, exactly.
So yeah, that's a kind of like similar, but not how should I put it? Like directly stemming from it.
Yeah, right. There's not a cause-effect relation, right? Because of this independent development in diaspora during 3 centuries. And this is interesting. This is not, people say, "Oh, this is unique to Ladino. Ladino is such a unique language. It doesn't happen in any other language." That's not true. There are other Hispanic languages that are not dialects of Spanish. For instance, Chabacano. Have you heard about this language? Chabacano?
No.
In Spanish, Chabacano means, I'll write it in the chat, Chabacano. Chabacano, it's a word that exists in current Spanish, and it just means vulgar, right?
Okay.
But at the same time, it's how Spaniards called, again, a language that they thought was poor or broke Spanish from their viewpoint, from the viewpoint of Spanish. And it's a language spoken in Philippines. And it's actually spoken by more people than Ladino. But it's not a koine like Ladino. It's not a language that is the result of contact between people from different parts of the Iberian Peninsula. It's not a koine in that sense. It's a Creole language. It's a language spoken by the generation of descendants from slaves as a result of the Mexico, so Acapulco to Manila, slave trade, right? So as a result of that slave trade, Chabacano incorporates words from current Spanish in Mexico, and at the same time, the grammar of languages from the Philippines. So with a different subject, verb, complement order. So when you hear Chabacano, the grammar is so different that is not mutually intelligible like Ladino. It's not even mutually intelligible. But if you see it written, then you can understand. But if you just hear it, it's very difficult to. It's not mutually intelligible.
Yeah.
And that's another example of a language that is Hispanic, because its base is a language from the Iberian Peninsula, but it's not Spanish. It's not even mutually intelligible. So how can it be? But also because of the historical circumstances, right? It was developed as a result of the slave trade between Acapulco and Manila, without ever settling in the Iberian Peninsula. So,
And correct me if I'm wrong, but even Filipino itself, it feels like it was influenced by Spanish. That's the feeling I get. So my uneducated opinion, like,
but their names sound Spanish.
Yeah.
I didn't get that. You said that Philippines itself. What?
Yeah. It feels like it, at least to my ears. But it's like.
You mean that Filipino doesn't sound like Spanish? Is that what you said?
It sounds actually I would say that some roots really feels Spanish to me, but maybe I'm wrong. That's the feeling I get.
I don't know. I don't know that much about Filipino, to be honest.
Okay, I'll look at that at some point.
But if you go, for instance, I'm sure you guys know this place Lang Focus, right? Very famous, right? You know this. So he has Lang Focus, right? I wrote it in the chat. This guy has a video on Chabacano, where he the origins of Chabacano is very. You'll like this video.
Sure, we'll check it out.
So, okay, so why it's not a dialect of Spanish? We've explained that. And then, okay, we've also talked about why it's not Ladino, poor, or broken Spanish, right? Okay.
Yeah.
What else? ¿Qué más? ¿Qué más? Aquí, este es Beni Aguado. Esta es una persona interesante porque Beni Aguado es un sefardí. Él nació en New York y yo lo conocí aquí, en New York. Pero su familia son de Grecia y de Turquía. Entonces, del Imperio Osmaní, y los dos hablaban ladino. Entonces, su primera lengua es el ladino. Y aquí nos va a cantar una cantica, decimos en ladino, una canción, que es muy, muy, muy famosa entre los sefardíes y se llama En Tierras Ajenas, In Foreign Lands. And the chorus says, en tierras ajenas yo me voy a morir. Abroad or in foreign lands, I will die. And it's about the nostalgia for the Iberian Peninsula and so on. And I wanted to showcase it to you because it's very idiosyncratic, very emblematic, very iconic of the Sephardim. And also, as you can see on the screen already, can you guess which alphabet is that one? That Beni Aguado.
Isn't that the handwritten Hebrew?
Yes, it's Solitreo. Yeah, Solitreo.
Yeah.
And he's writing this also as a marker of identity, right? Like saying, okay, there are people who can speak Ladino, but watch out what I can do. I can also write it in Solitreo, so I'm truly Sephardic. It's a sort of
I see.
performance of identity. Yeah.
Déjame que en buena hora al Ladino 21. El cantónico de refranes, cuentos y de vez en cuando canticas en la lengua sefaradí.
This was the very beginning of my platform of Ladino 21, which I co-founded in 2017. This was probably the first video I think we shot, and this was downstairs from this building, New York University.
I see.
La cantica que nos vamos a presentar hoy es casi un himno sefaradí. No es la vida por Israel.
It says la cantica que vamos a presentaros hoy es casi un himno sefardí y no es la vida do por el Raquí. La vida do por el Raquí es una canción sefardí muy, muy emblemática y es sobre el Raquí, que en Bulgaria y en Serbia y en Turquía es Raquí. ¿Sí?
Raquía.
La vida do por el Raquí podéis buscarla en YouTube en versión hip hop by Los Serenos Sefaradís. Es una versión muy bonita. Los Serenos Sefaradís. Y es sobre cómo la población sefaradí necesita beber el raquí para olvidar todo el trauma de la diáspora y de... Es muy, muy bonito. Vale, entonces, ahora él va a cantar En Tierras Ajenas. Y vais a ver que el volumen es más alto porque es un vídeo diferente.
Se llama...
Y ahora escribe el título en Solitreo. Entonces, árboles lloran por lluvias, which is lluvias or rain in Latin. Trees cry for rain. That's the title of the song. But most people know it. Most people knows the song as En Tierras Ajenas because that's the chorus part. So most people think the title, but the title is actually. And the thing he's holding with his hand, do you know what that is? That object that he has on his hand is playing with that all the time.
I think you must know.
The tefillin. So the thing that's rolled like on the arm.
It's called trespil. And it's do you know these balls that people buy these days against anxiety that they do like that to help them?
Yeah, squishies, anti-stress.
Right? And this was very, very iconic of the Sephardic way of being, to use these tres.
Yeah.
Árboles lloran por lluvias y montañas por aires, así lloran los mis ojos por ti, querida amante, así lloran los mis ojos por ti, querida amante, torno y digo, ¿qué va a ser de mí? En tierras ajenas yo me voy a morir. Enfrente de mí hay un ángel con tus ojos me mira. Llorar quiero y no puedo, mi corazón suspira. Llorar quiero y no puedo, mi corazón suspira. Pienso y digo, ¿qué va a ser de mí? En tierras ajenas yo me voy a morir. Vendrás y vendrás, vendrás y vendremos. El amor que tenemos los dos, no lo gozaremos. El amor que tenemos los dos, no lo gozaremos. Y Solumia y se mojó la calle y el cortillo anda deslindea mi amor, que es la luz de mis ojos. Porno y digo, ¿qué va a ser de mí? En tierras ajenas yo me voy a morir.
What do you think about this song?
It's very interesting because it sounds definitely like similar, like let's say, yeah, related to Spanish,
Right.
but it definitely makes me think more of the Balkans. Like I don't know if it's accurate or not, but that's the feeling that I get.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe I also sense some kind of the pattern, the way the voice goes. It does feel like national music from the Balkans. Probably not only, but does resemble it.
It is folklore music, definitely. It does feel like that to me. We have a style in Aragon, in my region in Spain, we call jotas.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very similar. It's like you put your hands on your hips and you do a little bit like this.
Yeah.
It's the same style of singing. Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's very Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm probably the worst person to ask this because, like, I would argue that French people is more of a written language. We borderline do not have like traditional singing, apart from different like specific areas. It's like we probably the least Latin language of all Latin languages, I think. But there you go.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is so this is very poignant, right? As if you place
Yeah,
your
very.
issues
Very,
of
very.
someone who's living abroad and realizes going to die without returning to his land or the land that he feels close to. Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, very, very moving. Yeah.
All right, so I think that's all I had. We say in Ladino, when you wish someone well as a farewell, you can say "Al vermos con salud cumplida y todo bueno." The Ladino language places a lot of accent in health because many of its speakers are the elderly. Health is super important to them, and so when you greet or say goodbye to somebody in Ladino, you always include an expression referred to health, like con salud cumplida y todo bueno. You can say bonica que estés, like may you be healthy. Bonico que estés, sano y recio. Recio es fuerte. So we say sano y recio. It means may you be healthy and strong. Yeah.
Okay.
And I will finish with this. We also say when someone lives on a trip abroad, for instance, we say caminos de leche y miel. That's the super uber Sephardic expression. Caminos de leche y miel is may you have ways of honey and milk.
Nice. Caminos de leche y miel. Great.
So,
well,
thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to talk to you about a language that is so close to my heart and to which I devote so many hours every day. And I hope that you learned something about Ladino and that it was useful to you as well.
Yes, absolutely. It was a great pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing this.
Yeah, thank you.